Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wrestling with Emotions presents Movie Night. Thanks for tuning in again. Um, Today we're talking weapons. If you are not familiar with this particular podcast, we like to talk movies every once in a while. It is a lot of fun, and this summer is turning into a pretty good one for some of the movies that have come out. And this was one, I forget when I saw this trailer, but it was one that I was interested to see right away. So, Weapons. We're going to get into it, but first, obviously, I will say spoilers, heavy spoilers. The whole thing is spoilers. We're not we're not sugarcoating everything. We're going to tell you anything. We're going to tell you everything. So, weapons. Um, let's let's get into it. Um, if you're familiar, or what was the director? A couple of years ago, the movie Barbarian came out. I'm not sure if anybody's. That was pretty popular. That was a very much a horror renaissance. That was, or from a theatrical standpoint, it was supposedly a big move forward. This was like box office horror. I think a lot of people saw this. It was good. I think I would see it again. I think obviously the performances in it are good. Um, from the main actress, I think her name is Georgina Campbell, and then of course Justin Long is in that. But this is Barbarian was written and directed by Zach Krieger. Kreger, hopefully I'm not saying that wrong, and he is the person or the director behind Weapons. So let's see here. Let's get into it. So as far as the film, it stars Josh Brolin, which I was trying to think about. Like, I can't remember if there's been any movies that I have not liked this dude in. He's awesome. I'm surprised he didn't have a much more box office driven career. I think the later half of his career so far has been very, very successful. Um, but he is great in this movie. It's headlined though by Julia Garner from Ozarks. She's in a lot of movies this summer, and she's been on fire recently too. She was in The Wolfman or Wolfman. She just played the Silver Surfer in the new Fantastic Four movie, and she plays Justine Gandy, an elementary school teacher in the town of Maybrook, Pennsylvania. So the plot, and they basically tell you this right away in the beginning of the movie. Essentially, at 2:17 exactly in the morning in Maybrook, Pennsylvania, 17 children from Julia Garner's Justine's classroom suddenly leave their homes in the middle of the night and disappear, except for this one student named Alex Lilly. Police investigations begin. They cannot locate or find any of the children. There are no leads. There really are just snippets of ring camera footage or camera footage from the streets of the kids basically running down the streets with their arms. Picture a kid. Picture yourself as a kid when you were like running through the yard, pretending to be like an airplane or something along those lines. They all run like that. Anybody that runs in this movie runs in that form or fashion. You can see that in the trailer as well. So we pick up after that brief intro. We see the kids go through the night. Now we're about a month after that instance and or the incident, and now we're at a point where post the disappearance and investigation, we're finally getting into a point where we're going to start school up again. We're bringing the kids back to school to continue the year. Basically, it starts out by a parent-teacher conference that involves essentially the principal, Marcus Miller, who's played by Benedict Wong in this movie, um, puts Justine on leave, basically based on pressures from the community. A lot of families and people in the movie, to include Josh Brolin in the beginning, are very skeptical and blame her for exactly what happened, because obviously this is the only classroom in the entire school where this incident happened, and just the one child was not taken or missing. Archer Graff is the character played by Josh Brolin. He's very vocal in this parent-teacher conference, and very frustrated as well by the speed at which these investigations are moving. Especially now, it's a month later. There are no leads, and things apparently seem to have come to a very much a standstill. This movie is broken into, I think, I want to say 4 different individual stories. You get Julia Garner's experience, you get Josh Brolin's experience, you get Benedict Wong's experience, you get James's experience, who's a junkie. We'll talk about here in a moment. And then there's a cop as well, who is, we get his experience as well. Paul, I believe his name is in the movie. So let's start out post teacher press conference. She goes home, and that's where we first get the hint that she basically has a problem with alcohol. She goes to basically like a package store and grabs a bunch of vodka, goes home, and she's constantly drinking it throughout. She's constantly drinking throughout the movie, whether she's in the car, at her home, anywhere to cope and deal with this, at bars. She has a problem, and then later on we find out when Josh Brolin goes to the police station again to see and get an update on the investigation. He again asks how deep they dug into her background, because he was able to find that she was fired from her previous job for inappropriate behavior, which turned out to be a relationship with another teacher. And then she did have a problem with, like, I think she had a DUI and something along those lines. So they do set the stage for her to kind of be a red herring, but not really, because you do from the jump get her point of view. She goes home. She's constantly looking over her shoulder, and someone tags her car in the middle of the night and writes "witch" on it, which again spoilers, is going to be a foreshadowing for kind of really what's kind of going on here. Fast forward, we start to see Justine decide that she's going to pick up some of the investigation on her own. She really wants to talk to that student Alex, the remaining student who was not missing. So she closely follows him, sees him go home into his house after school, sees the door open for him. He's led into the house, and the door closes behind them. She approaches the house, and then we start to see the first hints that obviously something is going on in Alex's house. All of the windows in the house are covered by newspaper. Front of the house, back of the house, any room that you can see into is covered by newspaper, with the exception there's a crack, or there's at least a divide between 2 of the newspapers on the back window. So she's spooked by the presence of basically what would eventually become Alex's parents sitting catatonic, basically sitting on the couch, just standing or staring straight out into the distance. She's rung the doorbell several times to try to talk to people, but she's obviously freaked out by this. Alerts the principal that something is going on. He's obviously pissed off that she has taken it upon herself to try to reach out to the students. Totally inappropriate. But that starts to set the stage for her story. She then, as we see, will go to the police station, where in the distance she sees the cop that I just mentioned, and his name is Paul. They eventually hook up at a bar later on, and that moves into the Josh Brolin story. You can see now he's basically a broken man. He's been sleeping in the kid's bed every night, just trying to figure out what's going on. He's owner of a construction company, constantly making errors and orders that are wrong and slowing down projects. Obviously, super torn about what's going on in his personal life. You could tell a little bit of a hint between him and the wife as well, that there is a little bit of a disconnect there as well. But there you see at that certain point when he's on the construction site that he had ordered the wrong paint for a door, which was supposed to be, I believe, blue or whatever, and ended up buying burnt orange. I tell you that because without them having to show it, he puts the paint in the back of his truck, and you know that's the paint that was used to tag her car. He starts to do a little bit of an investigation himself. That's where I alluded to. He goes to the police station to kind of get a checkup on where the sheriff is, or the captain is with the search. Um, the search, or the head of police is also Paul's father-in-law. Finds out. Um, where are we now? So halfway. So now we start to see. They start to have like the ending of Justine's, or part of her story too, is she has these dreams too of this lady. It looks like someone in like Joker makeup, and whenever they show the kids, because they have like a dream sequence where she goes into her classroom and all the kids are in their seats, they lift their heads and they all have like basically like Joker face paint. It's disturbing. It's a disturbing image. But there's this lady that she constantly sees in her dreams, and then Josh Brolin will eventually see in his. As he starts to follow leads and look at video, he starts to narrow down kind of like into the distance of where a lot of these kids were running off into. We get a cameo from Justin Long as well. He's the father of another child that was missing. And he shares his video from his Ring camera, and they kind of triangulate a general area of where these kids seem to be running off to into the distance. Um, from there, from the police station, he meets up with Justine's character at a gas station, and then they're attacked, or she's attacked by the principal character, played by Benedict Wong. Like, he looks out of his fucking mind. He's running like the kids. And he's obviously on a mission to kill her. His eyes are like bulging out of his head. So we'll obviously get that. That's disturbing in and of itself. Um, and then, we get a little bit of a background into the cop that Justine slept with. Obviously, they had a prior relationship. He, at one point in the film, tries to stop, or sees a junkie trying to break into this building, chases him down, ends up punching the junkie on camera, to which, like, he realizes he screwed up, lets him go under the assumption, like, hey, never show your face, do not come around here, and let's just forget it, because he basically stabbed himself going into that junkie's pocket. And this is on the heels of him basically having an affair the night before with Justine. So long story short, we get these are probably all out of order or out of sequence. The next thing I think we do is we catch up with the cop's backstory. We get an understanding too that he has a prior history with alcohol as well. If I was a much smarter man, that probably would have be a certain theme within the movie. But basically, it helps build the story between himself and that junkie, and why he's so furious when he sees this guy come towards the police station, and he chases him off into the woods where he has got basically like a homeless camp where he's living. Now, the junkie, will see from that particular point forward, because then I think that we get the principal's backstory. So the junkie story, I believe, is next. We get his story. Obviously, his whole goal is to get high. We catch up on him as he's trying to break into cars to basically, sell shit at a pawn shop for any money that he can get. He ends up at a certain point breaking into Alex's house. He climbs in through the upstairs window, grabs a pillowcase, and starts to basically try to load up whatever he can steal. He gets downstairs, and of course he encounters the parents sitting on the couch. Again, catatonic, not moving. They don't appear to be dead, but they're not. Their eyes are open. They're just sitting there. So it freaks him out, of course. He rumbles, bumbles, stumbles, and ends up somehow finding his way into the basement. And that's where we get a shot of the heads, essentially, of all these kids from that classroom standing straight up, lined up in the basement downstairs. He, of course, freaks out. The parents snap out of it and try to attack him a little bit. He escapes barely, and then I think he steals a bunch of silverware. And then goes back to the pawn shop, notices that there's a reward for $50,000 for any information leading to the whereabouts of all those children. He sees that, and that's why we get the shot of him walking back to the police station. The next piece is him running into the woods, where he again in real time sees that lady, the lady figure that looks, clownish, from a makeup standpoint, in the woods. Um, and he hides in his tent, assumes that the person who is opening the tent is that creature or person, stabs the person with 4 needles, and then ends up being the cop. Um, Ends up being able to take the cop to the Alex's house. He goes in and he disappears for the entire night. Now, one of the things that I missed a part of was at a certain point in Justine's story, she does camp out in front of Alex's house. She's drunk, falls asleep. So in the midnight hour, someone comes out of the house and is able to cut a piece of her hair off, while she's in the car sleeping and without her noticing. The next thing that we encounter is, I believe, the principal's story. So, if you'll recall, she mentions and calls the principal to say, "Hey, I think something is going on at this house. We need to do, or you need to do a wellness check. We're bound by law, regardless of how you feel about me." Blah 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 blah. So he basically calls the parents to invite them in, and who comes in to the office but the aunt. And you can see already that this seems to be the lady or the figure that we constantly see popping up in the woods, um, throughout the movie so far. She introduces herself as their aunt, says the parents aren't well, and he basically says, "Hey, I'm willing to even come to you. If I'm not able to talk to them, I basically need to go to the authorities, because once someone lodges a complaint, I have to, by law, basically, report that." He won't disclose who reports it. And then the next shot we get is she shows up to his house with his significant other, as they're watching TV on a weekend. I'm assuming this is his significant other. They're shown shopping together earlier in the film. She asked to come in because she said she walked across town, blah, 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 blah. Sets the stage basically she asks for a bowl of water, which he provides. And she pulls out like this thorny stick. And I couldn't tell based on the quality of the image that I was watching, what was wrapped around it originally. But it's a thorny stick that she basically cuts her hand with, bleeds all over the stick, and then wraps around, something around the stick. And she rings a bell, which snaps the principal into like a zombie state, and he attacks and kills the boyfriend or the husband, brutally headbutting the person until their face is mush on the ground. So gross. That is probably one of the reasons too that we get like the bulging eyes, because he's obviously crushing his own skull doing this. But incredibly disturbing looking. She snaps the stick. She has wrapped at this point the hair of Justine around the thorny stick, snaps it, and then he's off to the races. And this is where we get caught up to where he is now at the gas station, chasing her through and trying to kill her. He attacks Josh Brolin in the midst of everything as well. He ends up basically getting hit by a car and dying. And now Josh knows that the principal has nothing, or the teacher has nothing to do with this. So they now team up to basically look into what's going on. Now we get a point where we get Alex's story. Alex is the young boy who is unaffected by kind of what's happening, or so we assume. We pick it up very early on in his story where he's basically bullied. You can tell that he's bullied by all these kids. He sticks to himself. He's very quiet. Nice little guy. Great relationship, it looks like, with his mom and dad. They're all about like how his day is going. They consistently drop him off, pick him up from school. Just super involved in his life. And then a morning they let him know, hey, clean up. Basically, he knows his aunt is coming to visit. And it's an aunt that they're not familiar with, or they haven't seen in maybe like 15 years, they say. But she's supposedly very sick and coming to live with them so they can take care of her. And they're going to do that because she is family. We get a shot of her Well, we get an indication that she arrives late at night. The next morning, he goes in to brush his teeth, opens up her door to the other room, and can see like there's a wig on a mannequin, and then she's like she's laying in bed, but she's like staring at wide-eyed at him. Can't tell if she's asleep or just wild. But the next encounter that they have with her, or he has with her and the family, the parents are basically in the state that we find them, catatonic, at the kitchen table, only responding in very like short phrases, asking him how his day was, blah 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 blah. We get a little bit of backstory on the aunt, and then essentially she shows him that if you tell anybody about me, I have the ability and power to kill your parents and kill you essentially. So she displays the power of using that stick, the bell, as the parents begin to basically stab themselves in the face with forks. Just terrible, terrible imagery, and disturbing if you're that kid, obviously. So he's scared shitless into saying nothing. Um, and then he feeds the parents throughout the movie with soup, and he goes to the store, blah 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 blah. He starts taking the bus, um, and basically at a certain point, the aunt discloses to him like, "Hey, I'm super sick," and he's like, "Well, should we go to the hospital?" And she was like, "That's not going to help. Why don't you bring if you could bring your friends here, if you could bring me something that belongs to all of your friends, that might help me." So basically, we got a Sanderson sisters revival here of Hocus Pocus happening, because she's clearly a witch. We've established that. That's why I said the foreshadowing with the witch on the car. And now we are full blown into witch mode. So he snatches up name tags, basically, that the kids colored individually for like their own little cubby folders, and brings out to her. And that's where we get the story of her basically summoning those kids to their house in the morning and lining them up all in the basement to do her bidding. She moves them throughout the movie as well, depending upon if the cops are coming. They clean up the house at one point and take the newspaper down, only to put it back up. But now we're to a point where basically we're caught up, right? We've got all the stories have interwoven, and we're finally at a point now where Justine has helped also indicate like, hey, Josh shows her the map, and you see like all the arrows, the two arrows basically, or the two lines converge within this certain area. And she said, "Oh my God, that's Alex's house is right around that corner, around that block." So they camp out. They see the cop car. The aunt is fully aware that they are there. And she basically is able to get her in the house by having the cop come out, and gesture to Justine to come into the house. And that's when, the finale and everything starts to ensue. So at this particular point, the cop and the junkie are in the house at this point. They attack Josh Brolin and Justine's character, and the parents are basically guarding the aunt's door with a line of salt. At a point, the young boy goes over that salt. The parents then start running after him and trying to attack and kill him. Justine and Josh are able to kill the sheriff, or are able to kill the cop as well as the junkie. She shoots them both dead. The young boy is able to snap off a branch. She basically has a tree of these branches with the thorns. And he goes into the bathroom, stabs himself, wraps the wig piece around that branch, snaps the branch, and then all the kids are summoned from out of the basement, and they go and attack. They chase down the aunt. The aunt is also played by, let's see if we have any baseball fans out there, is played by Amy Madigan. If you've ever seen Field of Dreams, she's the mother in Field of Dreams. I was trying to place her last night. She's also in Uncle Buck and a bunch of other stories, but that's the first movie I think she's done in like 20 years, I want to say. But yeah, she's in this movie. I think she did a great job. Super creepy. But they brutally, the kids chase her down through houses. They get her. I'm sorry, she's been in a number of movies over the last several years, so I apologize. I didn't want to disparage her name. She's done TV and movies. But But the kids just rip this lady apart, snapping the spell because she eventually puts Josh Brolin under it as well. He's freed of it. The parents kind of snap out of it as well, but everybody's still in this weird state. Josh, movie ends with him recovering his kid that he was looking for, his son Matthew. And then the narration begins again that you kind of get at the beginning of the movie with the child kind of giving you the rundown. It seems like it takes a lot of these kids some time to kind of snap out of it. So I don't know if they're still under that embrace, but her dying. I mean, if you've seen the movie Hatchet, where it's in Hatchet 1 where he pulls that chick's head apart. There's something even more, the gruesome head pull on this is even more rugged than that, or even like Day of the Dead, where the soldiers like torn apart by the zombie horde. Very reminiscent of that type of feel. But all in all, I thought it was good. I thought that the tone was very cool. I thought they did a really good job of really bringing in, especially like the darkness elements, because a lot of this movie does take place at night, especially a lot of the creepier elements as well. But I thought it was well cast, well acted. I thought they did a really good job of storytelling. It could very well lead to a sequel. I mean, who knows how deep this family tree goes in terms of witchcraft and that kind of stuff. But interesting. I'm just reading. It looks like Pedro Pascal was originally cast. I mean, it's shocking, right, that he was cast to be in this. He's awesome. So I'm not hating, but it's cool to see that he was also possibly on this. But a great movie. It's 96% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. It's a good one. If you haven't seen it, go see it. So I guess, we don't even have a real rating system yet, but I will give it probably an 8 out of 10. There were a couple of things that I thought I might change. It's cool, but I mean, and I guess I was trying to think of a way to kind of, how would you rewrite the story where you didn't have to do all the interweaving of the stories to come to the final showdown of sorts. But I really couldn't think of a way that you could do that. I mean, there are ways that the scenes could possibly play out to where you get snippets of each person's individual plot and you're able to kind of weave that together, but it would be a very disjointed movie, I guess, if you were cutting from her talking on her cell phone to the principal, then showing him at the grocery store to establish a relationship with him and the other character. But I think there are probably ways that some things could have been cut and rejiggered to make it work more cohesively, I guess. That was the only criticism. The witchcraft angle, I think they played that pretty quickly. I guess here's the tough part, right? Is that sometimes less is more. So I think not explaining certain things is oftentimes good because it lends a level of mystery and mystique that you're kind of looking to build. But I think a little bit more background on the aunt, why she's there, why she needs the children. Your mind is left to wander as to why the kids are there, because once she gets them there into the house, he's basically, now the young boy is now taking care of his classmates, feeding them soup on the regular basis, and they're just standing up in the basement. So there's nothing that indicates like, oh, this is improving her health. So I'm very curious as to why they played that angle. What else? I think that was it. But all in all, good movie. If you have a chance, take a look. This has been Wrestling with Emotions Presents Movie Night. We're talking weapons. Thanks for tuning in. Check this out on YouTube. You probably are checking it out on YouTube. And if so, give us a like, give us a subscribe. Every little bit counts. And I certainly appreciate it. Again, as I mentioned this morning, I do this for fun. But I'd like to do it for real. Have a good one. The Wrestling with